Welcome to Sullivan Street again, episode 30, the hospital episode. And Chris, this is why podcasts are so good because we're having a whole podcast about a song from a covers album by the Crows called Hospital, and we can do a whole podcast about it. And of course, included with this is our special guest today, COBY Brown, the writer of the song Hospital, but not just the writer of the song Hospital, a great musician, performing artist in his own right. And we're going to talk about his career, and I'm excited about that. Chris, anything to add before we say hi to COBY?
But yeah, it's the point, right? We could go about pretty much any Crow song for an hour, and so
Yeah.
let's deep. We're slowly going to cover all of them, Eric, over the time. We've got a lot of time, but
And
yeah,
I know
I'm
you
excited.
can't really see it because I wouldn't usually wear this, and I've been sleeping in it mostly. But I decided to actually wear a Crow shirt today, which I usually don't. But because white kind of reminds me of the hospital, the sterile hospital. But this is also, it has a heart on it, but it's nothing to do with hospital. But this is the one that has kind of grown, and it's supposed to be love is a trap. That's the theme, which is very Adam. So
Oh,
that's the idea of the shirt, of the heart in the trap. But COBY, yeah. Anyway, COBY, welcome to the podcast. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
And this is great because we get to show, not only is it a neat song, a great song, and I've gotten it. The one cool thing about this is, like, preparing for the show, now I like this song even more. Both versions, the COBY
Good.
version and the Crows version, just listening to it the last couple of days and catching little things. So, but let's first talk about COBY Brown and his background bio with music, his releases. And correct me if I'm wrong, but if people are interested in hearing music from you, purchasing music, obviously they can go to your YouTube channel. And it looks like for purchasing Bandcamp, you can still buy stuff, and Amazon. Is that correct? Is that
Yeah,
the
you can
best?
you can you can buy stuff at Bandcamp. I don't know about Amazon, but Bandcamp, I like have a store or whatever,
Okay.
and yeah, that's a good place to go. Or obviously all the streamers, but Bandcamp first.
Yeah, that's true.
if you actually
It,
want to support an artist, go to
Yeah,
Bandcamp.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, and I think some of the physical CDs I saw on Amazon, but yeah, I agree. Go to Bandcamp first. So it looks like in the start of your career, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, because I know with a lot of indie artists and up and coming artists, sometimes it's piecemeal, right? And a lot
oh
of, so when you started, it looks like your first official EP release was in '98, and then you had maybe another longer EP later. So that was called First Pancake, and
yeah,
then
oh
I
yeah,
and then I saw one in 2000, Homesick, and another one, True Shines, in 2004, a longer EP, and Time Is Now, another
yeah.
kind of longer, right? So all sorts of good music. And then it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I know this ties into the timing and the themes, is your career was getting started, and then you had this cancer diagnosis that's a big part of your journey. And your
Yeah.
first official release, sorry, your first long play release was after that, actually. Is that correct? The,
Well,
the Stars and Curses?
I had Stars and Curses was my second full length record. I had made
Okay.
one with my first band, which is the one you referenced called Homesick.
Oh, okay. So that was with the band. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it was with a different. It was with my
Okay.
first band, but and and then I was just chasing the brass ring as you do, trying to. I mean, this was at a time when it was like about getting a record deal
Yes.
and trying to get a start and get some support and get opportunities that didn't come any other way. So I chased that for a while, and I was sort of I had this band that I made that record Homesick with, and they were great. It was just it sort of ran its course, and then I sort of went back to chasing the record deal thing as a solo artist, and but then I got diagnosed in 2006 um, with a weird pediatric tumor in my sinus. You don't have to get into all that, but it was called Ewing sarcoma, and I had to go through. I mean, I just was like, "What?" and music very quickly took a you know big time backseat, and because I had to go into pretty extensive, like a year, really gnarly treatment, but came out the other side, and I was at this crossroads with music, and not sure I wanted to keep I mean, I was heartbroken about it, but it was just like it wasn't going the way I wanted it to, and I thought, well, this is a good opportunity to reset, and maybe I'll go to law school, and and then over the course of that year while I was in treatment, I couldn't do a goddamn thing. So I ended up writing songs, and I had been at this really like stuck place, and songs started coming, and at the end of that year, I didn't know how to, you come out of a treatment, and you got to figure out how to reintegrate yourself into normal life, and um, I just was like, I don't know how to do anything else except write songs. So I think I have some songs to write now, thank God, and I'm going to spend some time finishing these. And then I just decided, well, there's a record here, and we started making the record. And actually, that's when I met Immer Gluck. Um, so
Okay.
and Immer Gluck came to see me play one night because he knew my drummer and guitar player at the time, and I'd heard about the band, sort of like the guys in my band, like had somehow ended up on a stage singing, hanging around with Counting Crows at a show, and so I didn't realize my guitar player Dan at the time was friendly with Immy, and Immy was like, "Oh, I'd love to come down and track. I like the songs," and so like the next day, there's Immer Gluck with a truck full of guitars and amps. And I was like, all right.
And what city? What city was that in?
This was in LA.
Oh, LA.
I
Okay.
was living in LA. So I was like, yeah, that's great. And, and that's sort of the start of our friendship. Um, uh, that process was really like a masterclass in record making for me, who'd always been sort of like, how do you do that? Like, I need someone to give me money to make like whatever. But like Emmer Gluck just came down and like, a couple passes on each song and had it. And I just learned a lot from him, about catching that spark and letting great people do what they do, and just, being grateful for it.
What's kind of like one of the big things?
So just to go back to the one thing, just to for my own net. So all of the Stars and Curses LP was written after your hospital stay, right? Or you can't, or was some
I
of that written before? Or?
I had some of the music, just, and I couldn't finish. I was just really at this terrible. I was at a low. I was going through a low time, and then I got sick, and then that's like it was just a complete uh, you know watershed moment in my life. But obviously, I couldn't do anything. So I would come home, and I was doing chemo, and um, I couldn't, all I could do on days where I was feeling good was, just sort of sit there with a guitar and like try to like hammer away. But I don't know, something that period for me served as a catalyst, and in my songwriting, and I got lucky. Things started to sort of like show up, lyrical
Yeah.
ideas, and and I was able to finish a bunch of songs, which I had been chasing these record deals, and all you hear when you're chasing record deals is that's not a hit, like that's not a hit.
Mm.
And if you want to like ruin a writer's confidence, just tell them like that's good but not good enough, but I can't tell you why. Like, so I finally quit like chasing that, and I was like, well, I like it, and I don't know if it's gonna be a hit, but it's gonna be on my record. Like, this is the song. So um, that was a deep sort of thing for me to figure out, and it was very liberating, and I was able to like get a bunch of songs written, and then I finished like maybe half that record after. Half of it maybe I wrote while I was in treatment, and the other half like the first 3 months out. I was like, just completely out of my mind with anxiety about like, how do you restart life after
Yeah.
this? And
Yeah.
so I just sat in a room and was like, well, I just can put all my anxiety into like writing these songs. And that worked. I thank God. So, and then I was like, well, I guess I'll make a record because the songs are there and I think they're good. Like
Yeah.
um, and so I started making this record and then, yeah, I met Immer Gluck and he sort of, I think the phrase he used was, I would like to insert myself into that process.
Oh, I love that. He
Yeah.
seems
And
like, yeah, a pretty funny guy.
yeah, he's,
Were you a fan of the band before meeting Immergluck? Was it so?
yeah, I was. I mean, who doesn't remember? Like, I was at music school. I was at Berkeley College of Music when everyone was like doing their year abroad or whatever they were doing in college. I was like, I don't want to go to Italy. I want to go to music school. So like, I don't know. Like, I just was like, I was the only one. I don't know. I was like, I better start figuring this out if I want to do it. So I was in bands and stuff, but I was like, I need to get more serious about like like writing and playing. And I was at Berkeley and Mr. Jones was everywhere. And then that record just kind of, my brother really liked it. And I kind of, I'd been copping my records from him my whole life. So, I was listening and there were a few songs on it that just like blew me away. I think Omaha really just like got me. And that, there were just a few songs littered through that record that were really, I was like, what is going on here? Like these are really great. And I liked it. I mean, I was listening to a lot of, that was like a weird sort of like, you'd hear like on the radio, maybe you'd hear Counting Crows and then Weezer and then, like just like
Yeah.
it was all over the place. And then Liz Phair and then maybe Jeff Buckley would, like it was all, there was a lot of good music happening. And it was, um, I don't know. It was having a moment, I guess. But yeah, I did like them, and then I went on. Sorry, I'm rambling, so just tell me to
No,
shut
That's
up.
good.
but say post grunge was like a weirdly open and interesting period of music. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? That
yeah,
weird stretch right there where you're like yeah, Counting Crows, Weezer. Oh wait, that first couple of Oasis
yeah.
records are in
Oasis.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, but did that so did that stick with you though? Those records, or did you like?
They did. But then, well, here's what happened. So after I graduated from college, my brother is a filmmaker and he was making a movie and he needed some songs. I met my now wife on his movie, which is, I don't know, like classic Hollywood banana stupid whatever, but she's rad and I'm very lucky. So but he was making a movie on Nantucket because he and I used to drive taxis in the summer. That was our job there. And he needed some songs written, and my wife Ever is best friends with Meredith Salinger, who I think dated Adam at one point, or they're friends. And so she Ever reached out to Meredith, who reached out to Adam, and Adam was like, "Yeah, we'll do some songs for that movie." And the movie never came out. Just long other podcast episode about that. But
Yeah, do you know though? I saw that briefly when researching a little bit about you, and I that's the first I heard about that. Like I knew that Adam, was writing songs for a play, right, and stuff. That do those
yeah,
songs that for your movie were they recorded or are they like? Is there something, or
so
are these songs written but never played? Or
I don't really know what happened. I thought Hanging Around was one of them, but I could be wrong because that ended up being in the movie. But you'd have to ask Adam about that.
okay,
And there was another one, like a really great song, and I can't remember what it is because it's in the movie that is in like litigation and sits on a shelf in a warehouse in Long Island. So like the movie's not, so it's a long story. But so Matt flew to Chicago, my brother Matt flew to Chicago when he was doing the edit to meet up with Counting Crows, who had a couple of days off there. And they went in, and Adam had written these songs, and they tracked, and 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 then I was spending more time in LA, and because my wife lived here, and so I met Adam a few times. This must be like 99, 2000. And he was super sweet and nice. And I was like trying to figure out how to like get my first record, that record we talked about, Homesick, to go. And he was nice enough to like listen to it and give me some thoughts. Um, and then that record came out, the one before Hard Candy,
This Desert Life.
This Desert Life.
This Desert Life, and that's the one with Mrs. Potter's Lullaby, right? That record blew the doors off my mind. I was just like, because I was like really trying to do my thing with my band, and at the time, and we were touring, and we were like, "What's our comp?" Because all the labels were like, "Well, who do you sound like?" And I was like, "Guess we sort of," and like people be like, "You sort of remind me of Counting Crows a little bit," and like, and I heard that, and I was like, yeah, but the songwriting from Counting Crows is like next level. And like, I just remember Mrs. Potter's Lullaby just got into my brain and wouldn't leave for like 3 months. And I was just like, this is a great record. And I think that's really where I was like, this band is really, really good. I mean, I always knew that, but I was just like, that record really got me in a different way. So
sometimes when you have that accumulation too, that you're like, it's not just a one album wonder kind of thing. So by the way, for the Crows fans, just so they know, we were talking about Stars and Curses 2008, but you had a couple other LPs, and the next one, which I think is the next one, French Exit, that's the one with Hospital on it.
Oh yeah,
I believe. And that then you also did a soundtrack. Was that for one of your brother's movies?
Well, when I got finished with, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm jumping all over the place, but when I got cancer, I sort of like came out the other side and made this record. And I was also like, well, I wanted to get into composing. So I started sort of hustling in that lane too, just cause I knew that I wanted to be making music. But I needed to find a way to do it that involved like being at home, because I wasn't thinking about touring. I was just married and trying to like, I wanted a little more control over my situation, I guess, in life than I might get. If I was also getting too old to be like, I wasn't going to do like the Lonely Man, get in your car and play. It's just, I was like, no, it's not for me at this point. I was in my 30s. I was like, I can't. We want to start a family, so I got into composing, and I did. A couple of things. I knew people who were making movies, and then my brother gave me a huge opportunity on his next feature, which was called The Man Who Knew Infinity, with Jeremy Irons and Dev Patel. And then so composing is sort of my bread and butter. But I mean, I'm still making records. I'm actually going to be playing shows with playing a show with, for the first time in like a year and a half, with IMMY and on the 11th of February out here. So.
Where is that?
That'll be at Hotel Cafe here in LA, which has sort of been like my home court for my time out here.
Okay, I'll look at my schedule. I might have to. Might have to head down for that.
Oh, please do. Let me know.
But so Imre Glück kind of it's a record before Hospital, right? Imre Glück kind of inserts himself.
Yeah.
I ask you, because you said he was like kind of very influential on sort of like making records. Like, any kind of big things that you kind of took from him? Like, what was his, other than like kind of moving kind of quickly? I think you said, like, what kind of like what were the things that he influenced you on in terms of making records?
Well, I'll say that like the moving quickly thing was big. Like, the magic happens in the first few takes, and I remember trying to like get him to play some part on something, and he was like, I don't know, like, and I don't know if he was just like, he couldn't get his head around it, or he just didn't want to do it. And I was like, yeah, I'm not pushing. Like, he everything he played on that is like, I mean, it was such an eye-opening experience, because like I was just like, oh, this is what happens when like someone who's truly great at what they do walks in the room. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to coax anything out of anybody. It just, they know what to do and they do it. And that was the big takeaway, that like, that's kind of what record making should be like. And I was like, so for me, that was huge, because I'd always been trying to like get something out of someone. And that's not to take anything away from anyone I ever made records with. It was sort of like, I should have been letting them do their thing. And, but like, Imre Glück was the first time I remember like someone coming in, doing their thing. And I was like, that's better than what I could have ever imagined it would be, like, and it was just sort of a lesson in like, surround yourself with those dudes. Like if you're in the record making business, right, like, get guys who come in and just get it. Like, you don't have to lose a day trying to like, there is something to record making where it's like, either you get it intuitively or you don't, and you got to like, you know, that's just the brutal truth of like.
Chris, I said something to him in the pre-interview, and I said that we've had a number of guests on the show, right? Jesse Eisenberg, James Campion, with Field Report, and then I'm missing David Lowery, and all of them, they're great friends with IMMY, right? And then Adam, right? Jay, like, oh, I talked to IMMY all day already, and I said Adam, out of the band, he's talked about a number of times. His best friend is IMMY, so I give IMMY credit for like putting all that energy into his friends and his relationships. Like he's obviously a very giving and engaging person in the people he cares about, and obviously he's obsessed with music too. That's part of it.
Well, he's
So
obsessed with music for sure, and he's also a super like just kind dude, and you know, I was saying to you, his big trick is that he makes us think like we're all his best friend.
yeah.
Like,
And he obviously has energy too, because I even saw some interview not too long ago from him. I want to say maybe 7 years ago or something, and he was still like, "Oh, it's in Sydney. This is my favorite place to be at 5 in the morning and
oh yeah,
stuff." And I was like, He wasn't 21 at the time, you know.
no,
So
no, no. But he's like that. Like that's his thing. Is like he's got to be making music,
yep,
and he loves it. And whether it's, you know, he's got Jesse Malin or Brother Sal or James Maddock or whoever it is. Like he's got like he really wants to be playing with whoever he can on any given night. Like that's his
yep.
thing. And I give him a lot of credit for like, you know, getting out and like reinventing himself a million different ways and like lifting up a lot of people who don't, you know, I mean, I mean, the signal boost his interest gave me was next level. I mean, you know, like for a lot of people who are sort of toiling under the radar, to have someone who's great and nice take notice of you and make you feel like what you're doing is worthwhile, in a business full of people who, you know, don't return phone calls, and
Right.
you know, it's just like, what is happening here? Like, so
Yeah, that's fantastic.
yeah, I mean,
So
he does a great job of that.
So let's get into the song "Hospital"
Yeah,
itself. Talk about just anything you want to preface about writing it or the lyrics or what it means. Some artists say, "Hey, you can figure out yourself what it means," but you might want to add. This is your chance to tell some fans about the song itself.
yeah. I don't know. I don't really. I mean, I know what the song's about, so I don't. I mean, sometimes it's nice to say that, I guess, but that you know, it means different things to different people. But like for me, I wrote that when not about my own illness, so that I was watching. Um, my mom was going through breast cancer stuff, and it was sort of about about that actually, and it was after my treatment, and it was just sort of like a way of me comparing notes with, I guess, my and her headspaces about how to deal with treatment. So I kind of wrote it about that. And I don't know how Immergluck, and so we were in the process of making French Exit. And I think we had a rough demo where um, I had sort of, you know, when you're writing and you're just trying to find lyrics that sort of fit the melody, and the spacing and the phrasing of the line. I think there was some stuff I was working on, like some of the words were coming through, but some weren't, and I think that so I think that Adam got from Emmy sort of a working demo of that song, and I think Adam liked what he was hearing. There was a version that was finished, but not what it was going to be on my record. But I think Adam really fell in love with that version, and it spoke to him, and so he decided that that was something for them to do. And
Is that why the two sets of lyrics are different? Like the
yeah,
release version of your song and the version on Underwater Sunshine are essentially the same but have quite different lyrics. And so I'm
yeah.
guessing Adam's the version of from the Crows is that demo version, and lyrically is did he change anything there, or is it basically those lyrics are
No,
your demo version?
they were finished lyrics. They just weren't. I knew that they weren't right for what I was my purposes. Like they were where I was at in the process, and I knew that they were going to get tweaked again. But in that time between me getting a chance to do it it had gotten introduced to Adam, and so they ran with that version.
Yeah. Well, and also maybe for his purposes, it just kind of
Yeah,
it was that's kind of an interesting that it's for two different purposes, two different sets of lyrics, and two different like impacts and ways versions of the
yeah.
song out in the world.
I mean, it could have just stayed with. Oh, do you hear? There's a little thunder in the background. If you're
Yeah.
picking it up, I don't. We're finally getting some rain in LA. So, but yeah, it spoke to him, and I was just, I was thrilled about it. I was just,
But
Amber.
and that helps explain what I think I'm sure is the only one on the record. I think the official release of his cover was 2012, and your official release, at least of the video, was 2013. But
Yeah,
that would explain, right? Because usually they're some of the songs on that album they're covering songs from the 60s, and then your song they're covering a song that hadn't been released
yeah,
yet.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, the intent was there. It just was like
yeah,
it ended up getting sort of a rewrite on my part, and I had already begun that rewrite, but I hadn't recorded it yet, and they had already run with that demo. So that c'est la vie. But I was super thrilled that it resonated with them, and I absolutely love their version of it because it's them, but it's them different, and I don't know, I love the way that they took it. So.
Chris, did
Did you
you want?
hear their
Oh,
version
yeah.
before you completed yours, or was it sort of parallel? It was
No,
kind
I
of
don't think I did. I don't think
okay.
I don't think I heard their version until the record was out. I don't think I ever got to hear their working mix of it. So
And
yeah,
you were done with yours when by the time
I
it
think
was
so. We must have been. The record making process for me and for them is quite different. Mine was dragging on and dragging on. Me and the producer both had young kids, and we would just get into the studio as either one of us could get sprung from changing diapers. And Counting Crows goes in like a proper outfit and like takes over a studio for X amount of time, I guess, and does their thing. But like my recording process is pretty piecemeal.
Chris, for those who, and obviously I'm gonna, well, we'll link the video in the bio. We again tell you, please go to Kobe Brown's YouTube page. We'll link to that too. And actually, I'm getting together, Chris. I told you I'm almost done. By the time this get released, I'm gonna make a YouTube playlist of all the originals that are covered from Underwater Sunshine. I don't think anybody's made that playlist yet. Um, yeah, so I think that's helpful for Crows fans. And that's what, by the way, that's one of the reasons Adam put that list together is he wanted people to go to the source material
Yeah,
for all those. Chris, did you want it for the fans? How would you describe the differences of the two? Because there really are stark differences in the recording. Kobe's, I guess, a little more, I don't know, muted. I can't even describe it. Are you
it's yeah,
able to?
I think the biggest differences I think are in the drums and the lead guitar. There's a sort of like jagged quality to the Crow's version that I think whereas is Kobe's version kind of like flows. It's more of a flow, and they're kind of intentionally maybe sort of like breaking things, and so it's a very different vibe of the two songs. Even again, they're the same song, but you get a very different energy from them.
yeah.
Um, which is again kind of interesting. I think again the different things that they relate to and the different ways you would connect with them. They're kind of separate because of that. A lot of it's in I think a lot of it's in the drums, the way Jim is playing, and kind of the lead guitar that Vickery is playing is very. There's a sort of I think a jagged quality to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and
Uh,
Adam
yeah.
sings kind of hard, if that makes sense. Almost how he sings like 1492 and some of the, at least in my sense, that's a harder where Kobe's, I don't know, I'd like it. It's, I don't know, muted is the best way to say it, at least in my mind, or so a little more subdued. But still, I don't know, it gets different vibes, but I love both of them.
I love
Yeah.
that sort of like they took it has an abrasive quality, like the
Yes.
guitar
Yeah.
line and even Adam's delivery is sort of stark, and
Yes. Yeah.
ours is a little more sort of like, I don't know, like dream pop
Yeah,
or
exactly. It
yeah,
was a little dream poppy, which I was
yeah,
kind of surprised when the first time I went back and heard your version.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not too much dream pop, but it has that over.
No,
You're
yeah,
absolutely right.
it's sort of got a sheen on it of reverb
Yeah,
and delay, and
yeah, I love that
they're
stuff.
different. But I love the way that they played it. I mean, I'm so honored that they did it, and and seeing them do it live is just a blast every time. I'll never get sick of that. So
Yeah,
um,
again, if you're looking on YouTube, the Codfish Barn show is probably one of the best recordings of them doing it live.
yeah,
Do you, Chris? Maybe this is a good time. I just want to, because when are we ever going to do this again? That maybe just quickly talk about. I won't read every word about Adam's liner notes for the show songs, and just because there's a couple interesting things. The number one most interesting thing is that Millard plays the acoustic guitar that you hear the whole time. It's not IMMY and it's not Dave
And
or
IMMY is on
whatever.
bass.
IMMY's on
yeah,
bass. It's
it's
a
on bass.
exactly,
Wait,
and
and
then
that's
he's
interesting because on your version, what does he play?
Uh, he plays some guitars and he plays um, the piano. I think there's like a like he see we would have him. He would come in and be like, "Oh, let's just," he'd run around. And there was a great old synth that was in like the corner, and he played this synth line on it. So he was just jumping around doing whatever was sort of striking his fancy. And, I was like, have at it, man. Like, so,
and
But I'm saying between the two versions, there's like a whole IMMY band in there.
oh, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like if we can just get him to play a little bit of drums, we can just hit a full IMMY version of
Yeah.
Hospital.
Which I'm sure he would do. But yeah, no, he's great like that. That's forgot that he played the bass on that track that's him on the
yeah,
kind of,
Adam starts the liner notes by saying Immer said, "I am playing bass on this one," so he came in with his
that's,
assertion.
that's him.
The other interesting thing, like you said, there's a little piano at the end of your version,
Yeah.
and even though they have Charlie, one of the best piano players, he does a string composition, which I don't really hear, but he doesn't play piano on that. I mean, I guess he plays the string composition probably on the keyboard, I guess, but he doesn't do his traditional piano on that. And then, yeah, Dave, for those into Dave, what I do, he does a little more on that song than usual. That's all I can say, that he has some he does kind of an interesting background thing, and then also he hits some kind of harder parts that kind of reminded me of the Recovering the Satellite days.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then it just talks about how Amy is friends with you. But you know what's so funny? This Chris, now we've seen it every other way. People call him Immer, right? Immer Gluck. What's the other one we hear?
I
Emmy,
mean,
Immer. There was another one that Eisenberg said. I can't remember. And then
Just
in this
David.
one,
Some people call him David.
And then in this one, and I think it's probably a joke, Adam references him as David Arthur Immergluck. Like he says the whole thing out, and I'm guessing he does that, to try to be a little tongue in cheek there.
yeah.
So yeah, but one of the things, and I guess it's worth mentioning here, was you mentioned about his vocals. Now he doesn't talk about kind of the loud or abrasive that I caught, but that he talk about what it meant to him. He was dealing with his own issues with hospitals and medication, and he's been a little more open with that now. And I know you briefly mentioned it on some podcasts years ago. This was like a part where he actually specifically says it, and I don't think a lot of people caught this when he was maybe not mentioning it in too many interviews. And he said, "I always dug Kobe's writing, but Hospital floored me. When I heard it and when we recorded it as well, I was in the worst part of 7 months of horrific drug withdrawals. As I weaned myself off a number of prescription psychiatric meds, they basically say I had no drug problem, but it was just some medications were prescribed to me that the docs no longer wanted me to take." And then he talks about how he thinks some of his withdrawals basically change the vocal of that song, maybe between the emotion of thinking about hospitals and drugs and then the physical side effects. And he said, "I was insanely focused when I did the song and did some of the best arrangements of my life, blah, blah." Okay, but you can hear me physically and vibrating around the room, especially on this song and the precise line, "There's some pills that I shouldn't take." So,
Yeah. Uh,
so pretty
Um,
deep. So pretty deep stuff that you don't see in all his liner notes. So,
yeah, he does have like a really like intensity about his delivery. Is this rain too loud? Can you hear?
but Adam's
Yeah,
singing there.
Adam's delivery is intense there, and I'm floored that he responded that way to this song and that it spoke to him, and that maybe it helped him is really nice to think, and gave him something to wrap himself around in a tough time, which is sort of the job of music. It's why you put things out to begin with. So
Yeah. And it
Yeah.
has, it's funny, his last line is, I don't know, because he's talking about the song is weird, his arrangement, and he said, hopefully there's no film, but there actually is half of the song is recorded, when they recorded it, half of that is on YouTube,
I
which,
just
Yeah,
saw
there's some
that
like
for the
recording
first time.
video. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I just saw that for the first time like 3 weeks ago. I couldn't believe it. I'd never seen it, and I was like, "This is oh my god, this is amazing." So there you go.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and you could see it when he performs it live. He kind of there is a bit of sort of him sort of like emoting physically and sort of showing that off, and the way he moves, kind of
Yeah,
holding himself together. That does kind of like bring that through. I think of sort of like what he was feeling there, and yeah, and I'm with him. You can hear it, right? That certain. I think it makes sense of the jaggedness. Also, kind of hearing us even just a little bit about what your composition was, the two different perspectives of it sort of make the two different versions sort of work. That Adam
yeah,
is sort of like it's like himself kind of shaking, and you're sort of kind of speaking to someone else and maybe trying to comfort them in a certain way,
yeah.
or to yourself a little bit too. But again, the different contexts sort of make the two versions sort of make sense to me. That Adam's often a different place than you were, but that again they're sort of kind of coming together in the middle.
Well, I
Um,
think that's the beauty of it is to like of music is it it I mean, I know what it's about for me, and for him it's about that, and it's about and I do love that when a song hits one person one way, and another, and it can be that even same lyrics or different lyrics. I mean, like I think a lot of the lyrics actually are there's a few lines that are different, but like I just think that whatever it is you wrap yourself around in a song, is going to be different from what someone else does, and the takeaways can be like diametrically opposite, but it's all from that one song, and it's really I'm really grateful to have written something that maybe did that for him, or anyone. So
I
yeah, and I
love
also, I
the,
mean,
oh,
I
sorry.
think I think it's actually a very universal song, even if you're not spending a lot of time in the hospitals. I think this, especially the sections about, I call it math or something, but that the
Oh,
X is all,
I
all
was
of that
just
stuff.
about to say that. That was the
Yeah.
best use of algebra in a song ever.
Firstly,
well,
incredible. Yeah. Sorry.
Really?
I took
No,
algebra
actually,
I took it 3 times in high school and college. That's where I had to put it to use somewhere.
yeah, it's like creative, and I like thinking creative and unique, but it slips right in. It wasn't too forced. It fit it
Thanks.
really well. So I actually had that was my next note, Chris. I actually wanted
Yeah.
to comment about that.
Well, and it's a very universal thing, right? The idea that you don't need to, if you're someone who thinks about things a lot and tries to solve them, that maybe you cannot solve this. Whatever situation you're in, it's not a math problem, and there's not x equals y. It's just going to be what it is. It might not add up to what you want it to. And I certainly, when I first heard that song in probably 2012, that's certainly what I connected to. I wasn't spending a lot of time in hospitals at that point. Have unfortunately a couple times since, but
Um, sorry.
the that I think that is, it's like a really kind of like a beautiful thing. And to your point, Eric, it's a very, very unique sort of take on things. I haven't seen anything else that really kind of gets at things in that way.
Yeah.
And as someone who kind of liked algebra, I was, I liked it. So yeah, it was very. I was like, oh my god.
I liked it too. I just
Well,
couldn't pass
that's
it.
great.
I just couldn't pass. I don't know. It just kept coming up like as a requirement. I was like, I did this really well in like eighth grade. Why do I have to do it my senior spring of college to get out of here? Like, anyway,
Oh, the educational system of not recognizing what you had done in eighth. You're like, I understood this in eighth grade. Why
I,
won't you give me credit for the course I took in eighth grade?
I got an A in eighth grade. Like, now I'm getting a C minus my senior year of college. Anyway, that's a whole
Chris,
other
You're
thing.
like, I'm trying to write songs. You hadn't, because you're probably trying to write songs. You're like, I don't want to do this algebra right now.
No,
A bunch of years later, you're like, aha, I finally, it's all kind of coming together.
all coming together. Now I'm watching my daughter do it, and I'm like, "How's it going for you?" She's like, she's
Can you
out.
remind me, both of you, that Kobe, like after this, have you either like played like one-off shows or did mini tours with the Crows, or
No.
okay,
So I've never done any touring with the Crows. I play shows with like so my arc as a music maker, I'm always writing songs and trying to record, but like, I've gotten into film scoring, and I do that, and I play shows, or I was playing shows as I could. Like, so I've got, Immer Gluck when he's around. I've got, um, the great bass player Johnny Flower, amazing drummer Michael Jerome. But these guys are like, they're all out with other people, and for me to play shows, like I want those guys. Like, so I kind of I'm at the mercy of their schedule. Um,
What's the best way for people to like? What do you just announce your shows at one off, or do you?
Yeah, I kind of do. I put it on social media, and I just booked these shows. I have two shows in February. I stopped playing for like a year and a half just because I was like, you know what? It's just it's a lot of work if you're doing it as a one off,
Right.
and I'm busy with other stuff. But I realized like I really want to start playing specifically the songs from Stars and Curses. Again. So I just found out Emma Gluck was going to be in town, and that's generally my thinking. Oh, is Emmy here? Okay, well, let's see if everyone else is here. And so it's February 11th, we'll do a show with that band, and then the 27th, I'm going to play the songs from Stars and Curses solo, which is would just be me and a guitar, and if I get like really courageous, a harmonica. But we'll see.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
For those also, I just quickly mention some of your other songs that I saw. I think an interesting sometimes is to go, what are your most popular videos on YouTube? I did see the most popular one was a song Cannonball, and what Patton Oswalt is in the video or something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's it.
yeah.
So I guess that's
That I like if you're doing it at a like a less than, if you're doing it at an under the radar level, you gotta it's been really a challenge to figure out how do I release music and how do I catch attention. It doesn't make sense to me, in my opinion, to put records out because you're taking one swing with 10 songs as opposed to 10 swings with 10 different
yep.
songs. It's not how I would like to do it. I would rather put records out, but like if I don't have a budget to like let you know I put a record out, my best use of my work is to like, okay, put the song out, try to put a video out if I have a good idea and someone who can help me make a great video.
Yeah.
And so that was my thinking for a while. So I had Cannonball, and my wife's best friend is Meredith Salinger, and Meredith had married Patton, and Patton was gracious enough to come be in that video. And I had friends who I have a great friend, Matt Lutweiler, who's a filmmaker who he spends a lot of time in Rwanda now, but when he's here, I always try to browbeat him into making a video for me. So that's how that happened. I had Matt, I had friends who were production designers, and we were able to like make that Cannonball video for relatively cheap, and everyone was just great and gave their time and energy into doing it, and we got a great video. I love that video, and but that's sort of what it's been about. Like if you're
Yeah.
it's just like really calculated hits and spends.
No, that
So
makes sense. And there's some neat videos for the fans. Again, Hospital doesn't just have the audio recording. Hospital, there is a video for Hospital. It's a really cool video. I actually love this as an original idea. There's a holiday song called Merry January. I
oh
love
yeah,
that there's like a January theme song instead of
for all
focusing
the
on
parents,
Thanksgiving and,
get
and,
my
and
kid back
Christmas.
to school.
The other song, I just wanted to highlight. I mean, there are some that caught my attention. I lived in Japan, so the Tokyo song was interesting. But
Oh, cool.
I actually think the best song on there, maybe besides Hospital, I love the "Come On, It's Time to Go," and Emmy
Oh,
is in that video as well. He
yeah,
plays
yeah,
that one.
yeah.
I don't know how that song would have done or would do so well. It reminds me of like Australian rock. Like I don't know if you know Temper Trap at all, but it reminds
Oh,
me of
yeah, a
something that
little
they
bit.
would play.
Oh, cool.
It's a great song. Anyway,
Thank you so
the
much.
Come On, It's Time to Go. And the other one that caught my attention was It Lived to Tell a Story. I got it's a little bit different than your other ones. I got a little bit like almost Elton John, Billy Joel vibes from it, even though
Yeah.
it's not you on a piano. It's kind of that feel. I don't know how you feel about those analysis.
I
That
I I
analysis.
I mean, listen, Billy Joel and Elton John are two of the greatest songwriters to walk the planet. That's high praise. Thank you.
So,
But
so
that's
I,
like I had that song and Amy that's one of those songs where Amy just walked in and like that line she just fell out of him. It was like amazing. I think our other guitar player had been playing it, and then Amy came in and played it down in a way that was just like next level. I can't remember, but yeah, thank you for
great.
checking it out.
Uh, I guess the last thing for me, Chris, you might have some things. I did want, since Kobe's here, you
Well,
could.
I would say in terms
Oh
of
yeah,
videos,
please.
I'll just drop
Oh
this in that you
yeah.
can find videos, some live videos of Hospital as well. There's one I think in Rockwood with Immy and Michael Jerome as well. I think is the drummer. And then you guys did like a garden session like that in like Adam's apartment at one point. I think maybe like 2013,
Oh,
14.
I never did a session at Adam's apartment, but I did a session with Ehud at Emmy's apartment. In his,
Oh, okay, maybe it's there. Okay,
yeah,
maybe
yeah, yeah.
okay.
And we ran
Because it
through
was
a lot.
definitely called a garden session, but so yeah, maybe that's it. It's Emmy's
Maybe it got
apartment instead
lumped
of
in with
Adam's.
that. No, I've we did that before the show at Rockwood. We just went and Ehud came over and filmed us going through the set list basically, and and we just played everything down. But yeah, there's videos of me and Emmer doing stuff, probably on my YouTube channel or but yeah, we'll try to get some video from this show coming up. We'll see how that goes. But it's one of the great blessings of my musical, of not just my musical life, of my life, to call him a friend and to have him make music with me. It's just that guy reaffirmed my faith in music and pursuing it at a time when I was ready to walk away. So I'll
And
forever be grateful to him for that.
And that's a good segue into what's going to be my last question, or at least point, which is about your, you can briefly talk about the book you're writing and that it will be released, I'm guessing, this year. So given what you're saying, I'm guessing Emmy's going to be in the book, right? Given that he had this influence, or at least maybe
Yeah,
not if mentioning his name, maybe mentioning about music and all
yeah, no,
that.
he's
So
in there. I I talk about how we met and the recording process for Stars and Curses, but the book is a work in progress. I mean, I haven't finished. It's you know so I do a lot of composing, and this town went on strike. This town had COVID hit it, and then work just dried up. So I had like a year, and thank God I'd stacked some projects, and I was all right. But and my wife was working, and but I spent the last year finishing that book and taking it as far as I could go. It's called Your Luck is Going to Change, and it's about my getting sick, and then how that sort of changed, and how that catalyzed my songwriting. And the record Stars and Curses that came out of it is sort of how that book culminates. But that's what I've been working on. I'm shopping it around now. I'm trying to find, it's it's a whole thing trying to it's like cracking a whole other field. It's like, oh, I'm going to go be a doctor for a year here. Like now I got to figure out like how to like bring that to market. But I'm working on that, and we'll see. I've got to find some believers who love it and want to help me put it out. But I'm super proud of it, and I'm trying to basically turn Stars and Curses into my foray back into playing. Will be sort of telling stories about those songs as a set of music, like a one man show kind of thing that hopefully will end up involving the band too. But these are my pipe dreams for the future when I think about playing music. And like that experience for me is the defining experience of my life, and the things that the insights that you gain going through a time like that. I just feel like you have a responsibility, if you can, to share them, and that's sort of what I was hoping to do with it. Is that when I got sick, there weren't a lot of books about it. That my brother gave me a copy of Lance Armstrong's book, and I know a lot of people hate Lance Armstrong, but as I say in the book, if you really hate him, you must not know anyone who had cancer, because that guy did a lot of good for people who were struggling with that,
Mm.
with the cancer diagnosis. So I was so grateful to have that book at a time when life was impossible. And I thought, I would like to contribute my story and see if it's helpful to anyone. And so I'm going to be sort of turning the book and that record into a one man show, hopefully over the course of the next year. Hopefully to go along with the release of the book, but all that will be speculative. But that's my intent. So
Well, thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah,
Do you have
that
a
sounds.
final
No, I'm
question?
saying that sounds. I
Yeah.
mean, because it's be very interested to read the book. In
thank
part because it's an interesting combination of two things, right? It sounds like of again your a bit of your story, and then also though there aren't a lot of great writing about I think making records that aren't the big records from the 70s. There's a good I'm sure wonderful books about like Fleetwood Mac rumors or whatever, but like there's just not there. Like the musician I really enjoy, Will Sheff from Rockville River, has been doing like a podcast series on his Patreon about like, hey, like the minutia and just the experience of making some of these records in the 2000s during that time and that scene, and it's fascinating. And so just the idea of also both like the process of then going like, okay, how do I turn this into a record? How do I sort of transition that? And how do I actually make it happen? Is something I'd be very interested to read about. So
yeah.
yeah, it sounds like an amazing it sounds like the kind of book that anyone who's listening to this podcast would probably be very excited to hold a copy of. So
Well, fingers
um
crossed. I appreciate
yeah.
you saying that. But yeah, that'd be amazing. And yeah, I think that the record making process, if you're not working at a level that's elite, is interesting. And there are great records getting made. Not to say mine is some great record, but like, yeah, there are things out there that you haven't heard of that will knock your socks off. And it is interesting. The stories that go into making records are interesting for sure. So,
Well, thanks so much, Kobe, for sharing about your personal journey, some of your personal
oh yeah.
stories, and also your connection to the Counting Crows and their history and your relationship with IMMY and your contribution to the Underwater Sunshine record and a great song, Hospital. So thanks so
Oh,
much.
thank you for having me, you guys. It's been a blast.
All right, thank you, and we'll see you next time.